All right, hopefully this comes out. I had planned on doing this dust collector separator after I got the new dust collector going. I'm going to do a project where I copy dust collector, or the dust collector head itself, the impeller unit, off of a guy online who's really popular from Canada, and I'll post a link to his website or his YouTube page in the description. But I've been down a couple days without the dust collector, and I can't live that long without one because I use it to clean the shop up when I'm done with projects. So you can actually see, I'll show you real quick, the mess that's on the floor right there, and there's piles of that stuff everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and document this. I was gonna do a Thien Baffle dust separation system, and then I saw what I think will be a much simpler one, and it's just all I'm gonna do is take this garbage can, and this is a Rubbermaid Brute, and I'm gonna put a baffle down the center of it, and then essentially I'm going to have fittings coming out of it like they are on the picture right there. And that's what I'm going to do because I think it's going to be simpler and it's far cheaper and it takes way less of my time, and right now my time is real valuable. So we'll go ahead and just document this as I do it, and hopefully this will help one of you guys out. So we'll get started here. So what I plan on doing is I plan on using these rings with a piece of tubing in the middle glued, sandwiched on top of the lid, and that will pinch them in place, and then I'm going to use silicone to seal them up. So we'll go ahead and get started. So these are 4-inch fittings, and that happens to be what my dust collector outlet is 4-inch. And the depth I'm going to need to cut the union piece of tube, these are 1 3/4 inches. So that's going to be 3.5. And what I'll do is I'll cut them just a tiny bit short so that I make sure that they're actually able to bind down on the top. Alright, so even though these are supposed to be 3.5 to be full depth, I cut them to 3 1/4 just to be safe. I want to make sure that I can push them together and actually pinch the lid, and I can push them all the way together. So 3 1/4 is going to work. I'm going to cut one more at 3 1/4, and then we'll start the glue up process, which shouldn't take too terribly long. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these up in one side real quick. And I bought some of this hot glue that I supposedly don't have to use primer with. Oh my gosh, that stuff sticks to everything. And I need to clean that glue up real quick. So one of the things I found at the hardware store is that this rubberized fitting goes on top of a 4 to 3 inch, and this is that thin PVC that they use in like drain lines. So this fitting just happens to go over the top of the 3 inch, and then if I bring my shop vac hose over here, it just perfectly fits a shop vac hose. Right size, didn't have to order it from some special place. Just went to the plumbing store. So that's a side note. That's actually going to go on here, and I'm going to make some sliders for it. Anyways, now what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the shape onto the lid, and what I was just checking there was the lid is directional on this garbage can. Where I'm going to put the baffle is actually in a specific spot, so I had to check and see where these are going to go, and they're going to go opposite the handles. So I'm going to put one right here, and I'm going to just carefully as I can, I'm going to mark it so that I can get it to slip down inside the hole. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And I'm just going to jigsaw those out and go under a tiny bit so that I can clean them up and make sure that they fit. I'll spare you guys getting all the tools out. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out real quick with the jigsaw, or not, as careful as I can be. And I suppose I need to poke a hole in real fast. Alright. Finally found my chuck. So we'll get some holes poked in this real quick. Alright, so we can get these jigsawed out here. Alright, there's my two holes. And what I'll do after I get all these friggin' plastic chips out of here is I will sand these out real fast. See how close they are. I'll save you guys from watching me sand this. Alright, that didn't take much sanding. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to forcefully mate and clamp the other side down so that it actually pinches the lid in between the two halves. And the way I'll do that is I will measure through these real quick. 5 3/4. And what I'll do is cut myself a piece of stock that's shorter than that. Alright, so what I whipped up real quick was just this piece of wood. All it does is it pushes through this hole, and when I actually glue this piece down, I'll screw this on top of it and it will make sure and clamp the, it'll make sure and pull the fitting down tightly against the lid so that it's as tight as I can possibly get it. So pull this off real quick. Alright, I already glued one up to make sure it would work because I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, and it worked just fine. So this is the second half of gluing them together. This glue is a faster glue, so once I get them going, it dries pretty quick. And it's thicker than the other glue, than the glue I normally use, which is, I guess, the clear kind you're used to, well, at least us non-commercial guys are used to using. Meaning I'm not a plumber. So I'll get the second one tightened down here. And wipe the glue off while that's drying. What I plan on doing when I'm all done is using some silicone on both sides and caulking it. So even if it didn't get totally sealed up on the lid, I'll finish with some caulking, some silicone. I think I got it for the most part. Alright, so that's the two tops glued on there. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to work on, as soon as this dries, I'm going to work on the baffle that runs down inside of the garbage can itself. So the baffle I'm going to put in, I'm going to make 10 inches deep. The overall garbage can inside is roughly 28 inches. So that'll go a third of the way down. And at the top I measured it and it's 20 3/8, and then down at 10 inches down it's 20 inches across, give or take a little bit. So I've got some subflooring on the other side over here I'm going to cut, and I will bring it back and test fit it, and I'll get that in the shot here in a little bit. Am I recording? Yes, I am. So what I did is I went ahead and cut a baffle for the inside of this, and it tapers slightly. At the top it was 20 3/8, but it actually should have been 20 5/16. And then at the bottom, 10 inches down, it tapers to 20 inches. So right now what I'm doing is I'm drilling the piece of wood in place and then putting screws in. So I'm just trying to get the first 2 screws in, and then once I get those in, I know it'll be lined up. So let's see here. Find the hole. All right, there it is. And now that I've got it in place, I'll go ahead and drill the other 2 holes. It doesn't need to be perfectly lined up, although I have been called a perfectionist before, so put those 2 in. That one peeled out, I'm not sure why. And then we'll do this side. And we'll put 2 more screws in. And we get the last screw in here. Let's see. Alright, baffle's in. So we'll go ahead and test the lid. And the lid should snap on and line up with these handles here. And it does snap on. It's a little loose, so I think I'm going to put some foam around the outside. So we'll go ahead and stop it real quick. So this double-sided foam here, or the sticky foam, didn't work the way I wanted it to, so I'm going to do some hot glue action, and we'll see if that works instead of the old foamage. And so all I'm doing here is hot glue gunning down this foam because I've got a little gap when the lid goes on. Alright, so it was an arduous process between not melting the garbage can and trying to get the stupid, whoa, the glue. The glue's still hot, obviously. So just trying to get all that on there and not screw it up, and it's just really easy to do. So I'm going to try to fit the lid now. My handy dandy assistant will hand me the lid. And we'll see how it fits, if it fits a little tighter. So, whoa, what's going on here? And I would say it fits a fair amount tighter. It's still not as tight as I would want it to be. I probably could put some wood bracing down, but I think that under vacuum it's going to pull down tight, I guess. So the next step for me is to start hooking it up over here. So I'll have I'll pause the camera real quick and we'll get it over in place. Alright, so I've got an issue here where you can see that the dust collector was higher than the garbage can, so I'm going to make a little piece to go in between here. And I don't glue anything because inevitably you end up pulling it apart like this, so I'm just going to tape it. But basically it's 1 3/4, is that right? Yeah, so it's 3.5 plus whatever your measurement between is. So in this case it's 3 inches, so I'm going to go make a 6.5 inch piece real quick. Alright, so I made my little piece here, and I'll get it in here real fast, and then squish the garbage can down. That's not working so well. And, come on, garbage can. There we go. Get that back in place. And so I'll tape that joint there, and I'll tape this upper joint. And for those of you that are wondering, this here is for the shop vac hose. So next I need to make a piece that goes up and over into here. I got 90-degree elbows for that. The thing about the 90-degree elbows is they're way too big. They're actually for this is made for the inside of this pipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little 1 3/4 piece just to fit on top of here. Maybe I'll actually make it, let's see. Yeah. I'm going to make it 2.5 inches. Be right back. Alright, so I'm going to make up this last piece here, and I'm just going to eyeball it to see what height it is. So if I was going to guess, I'd say that's pretty much lined up. So I'm going to make that's 2.5, and 3.5 is 6. Yes, so I'm going to make a 6-inch piece, and then I'm going to make a 4 plus 3.5 is 7.5. So 6 and 7.5. I'll be right back. So I've got some good duct tape and some bad duct tape. I use the good duct tape to tape the joints, and the bad duct tape to fix things that don't fit. So in this case, I happen to know that the fitting is not fitting tightly on the dust collector itself. So I get these joints taped real quick, and then we'll address the dust collector in just a second.